Reading the title of this piece might lead someone to believe it will explore the fine details of intimate affection from experts. However, the focus here is different. This is about those personal moments of closeness between partners, emphasizing the importance of focusing on your partner's needs and desires. Have you ever wanted something for a special occasion like a birthday or Christmas? Maybe you dropped hints to those who might buy you a present, hoping they'd catch on. But when the big day arrived, you unwrapped a gift that wasn't quite what you had in mind. There's a familiar irony in this situation. You're expected to be grateful and thankful for the gift, even if it's not exactly what you wanted. After all, someone cared enough to give you something, and expressing appreciation is only right. At the same time, the person who chose the gift, deciding based on their own ideas rather than your desires, expects your gratitude as well. This dynamic often leads to a little bit of pretending from both the giver and the receiver. Everyone has been there at some point. It's a common human experience that shows how understanding one another is not always easy, even in the best of relationships. Looking back to the 1970s when we were in our early 20s and dating, life was very different. At that time, we were not practicing Christians, and sex was an exciting, fresh experience for us. Young, full of energy, and swept up in new emotions, anything we did in terms of intimacy was thrilling. Discretion wasn't a priority back then, and it didn't matter much where or when these intimate moments took place. We simply embraced our feelings openly and enthusiastically. I remember those times vividly, particularly the satisfaction of knowing I could give him pleasure directly. There was something deeply fulfilling in that exchange. The joy of bringing happiness to your partner and receiving it in return. At those moments, everything felt right with the world. But as time went on, we began to recognize that not every activity was equally enjoyable. Sometimes, certain things didn't bring joy or caused discomfort. The natural response was to avoid those actions to protect one another's feelings. Gradually, what we engaged in became less about trying everything and more about focusing on what we both knew brought happiness. This shift highlighted a crucial element in any intimate relationship: communication. True sexual communication means being able not only to talk openly about your own needs, but also to listen carefully and empathetically to your partner's desires. It's about understanding that the ultimate goal is to give your partner what brings them happiness, pleasure, and satisfaction, and not just what you want to offer. There's a beautiful truth in the idea that the greater blessing is in giving rather than receiving. Both of us agree that nothing is more thrilling than being able to spontaneously show affection in the way our partner enjoys, without expecting anything in return, although of course, that often comes naturally anyway. Sometimes, when one of us is very focused on pleasing the other, the excitement is so intense that it brings about an involuntary response manifested through grinding, humping, or other physical expressions of desire. These are moments when you become so caught up in your partner's pleasure that your whole body reacts instinctively. Entering intimate moments with an attitude of, "I already know everything," is one of the biggest mistakes couples can make. Even worse is settling into routines and expecting your partner to be content with that for the rest of their life. Relationships and intimacy are living things that require attention, care, and flexibility. As our lives moved forward, we married, started families, bought houses, and pursued careers, busy lives that often intrude on our privacy and intimate connection. Along the way, we joined a church and became practicing Christians. This new environment introduced us to many ideas about what is appropriate and what is not, coming from friends, mentors, and teachers. However, not all advice is created equal. Just because someone feels compelled to speak on a subject doesn't mean their perspective is right for you or your relationship. Sadly, I have known women who strongly disliked giving certain kinds of affection, which in some cases led to a complete stop in affection within their marriages. Male friends of my husband have confided feelings of defeat and rejection because their efforts seemed inadequate, threatening the very foundation of their relationships. Committing to marriage means committing to monogamy, which includes being the sole source of your partner's emotional and physical intimacy. When one spouse refuses to meet the other's needs, it casts a shadow over the relationship, creating fertile ground for emotional disconnect and even temptation. It's up to each of us to give not what we want to give, but what our partner truly needs. This balance requires cooperation, sincerity, and a willingness to open up to each other. If you've read our previous discussions or comments, you might already be familiar with our intimate journey, which was born out of honest and courageous communication. This process is intricate and demands a lot of honesty, vulnerability, and patience from both partners. Often in courtship, we hesitate to reveal everything for fear of judgment or rejection. We hold back desires, secrets, and curiosities, hoping that somehow we'll be able to share them safely after marriage. Unfortunately, this delay tends to keep these desires hidden and unfulfilled longer than necessary. It's even more common in Christian marriages, where some topics can carry the stigma of being unchristian. Despite cultural or religious taboos, fostering communication in these areas is essential for a healthy and fulfilling partnership. Today's conversation focuses specifically on acts of affection shared orally, those tender, intimate moments between partners. These expressions of love and desire aren't confined to a bedroom. They can happen anywhere, from the quiet corners of a park on a road trip to a secret escape during a family gathering. Breaking free from rigid ideas about when and where intimacy should happen can bring a refreshing boost to your connection. In all of these aspects, a simple but profound principle applies. Communicate. Share openly what feels good, where, and how. Discover together the places, touches, and rhythms that bring your partner happiness. Understanding each other on such a deep level creates a partnership not only based on love, but on mutual satisfaction and joy. The more you come to know and respond to your partner's needs, the more powerful and meaningful your shared moments become. And that truly is the greatest gift you can offer. Over time, we realized that not every intimate experience was equally enjoyable or comfortable for both of us. It became clear that doing something that made either partner uneasy was not beneficial, and often the best course was simply to stop those actions. Gradually, what we engaged in centered more around familiar and mutually pleasurable activities. However, this natural narrowing of preferences made us realize the critical importance of honest and open communication between partners. Sexual communication is more than just sharing desires. It involves actively listening and responding to what your partner wants and needs. It's a two-way street where both people express themselves and deeply consider each other's feelings and preferences. This level of understanding is foundational for a healthy and satisfying intimate relationship. The goal is not to impose what you personally like, but to discover and provide what brings your partner joy, pleasure, and fulfillment. This perspective requires humility and selflessness, reminding us that true satisfaction comes from giving rather than simply receiving. One of the most exciting and fulfilling aspects of our relationship has been the ability to spontaneously show affection in ways that please our partner. Performing these intimate acts without expecting something in return can be incredibly arousing and deeply bonding, though often, reciprocity naturally occurs. There have been times when one of us was completely focused on delighting the other, so much so that physical excitement ran through our entire bodies, leaving no part untouched by desire. The intensity of such moments goes beyond mere technique. It's about connection, enthusiasm, and presence. Entering into intimacy with the attitude that, I already know everything, is perhaps the greatest pitfall couples face. Sexuality is complex and constantly evolving, and assuming otherwise closes the door to growth and exploration. Even worse is expecting your partner to be content with repetitive or outdated routines throughout an entire lifetime. Relationships must adapt, learn, and deepen over time for intimacy to flourish. Marriage brought new challenges and realities. We built a life with children, bought homes, managed careers, and cared for pets. The demands of daily life began to encroach on our privacy and the frequency and quality of intimate moments. Along the way, our spiritual path led us to become practicing Christians, which introduced new layers of thought about morality, appropriateness, and expectations. We found ourselves absorbing various opinions about what should or should not happen between spouses. Yet, we also learned a valuable lesson. Not every piece of advice or doctrine matches the unique dynamics of your relationship. Some women we knew deeply disliked certain expressions of intimacy, leading in some cases to a complete cessation of those moments with their husbands. Similarly, I heard from male friends who felt increasingly defeated because it seemed impossible to please their spouses. Such situations created tension and threatened marriages, making honest dialogue even more urgent. Entering marriage is to commit to monogamy, not just in presence but in emotional and physical intimacy. Being the only source of your partner's closeness means your role is vital. When one spouse refuses or fails to fulfill the other's needs, it leaves a void that can foster frustration, disappointment, and vulnerability. This unaddressed dissatisfaction can open the door to harmful thoughts or temptations outside the marriage. Recognizing this, it becomes the shared responsibility of both partners to give not what we selfishly desire, but what our spouse actually needs. This requires cooperation, patience, and generosity from both sides. If you have followed our earlier writings, you might have encountered our mention of our intimate journey, a personal revolution sparked by honest communication about our real desires and boundaries. This journey involves deep honesty, a willingness to confront not only what turns us on, but also what challenges we face physically and emotionally. Many couples hold back from revealing everything about their preferences during courtship, fearing judgment or rejection. These withheld desires can linger unspoken for years, slowing intimacy's growth. In Christian marriages, this silence is often reinforced by fears about what is considered appropriate or unchristian, further complicating honest conversation. Despite these difficulties, openness is essential. This particular conversation focuses on affectionate oral expressions shared by partners. These are moments of closeness that transcend a specific location or time. They can happen anywhere in the privacy of a bedroom, during a scenic road trip, or even a quiet recess at a social event. Breaking free from the idea that intimacy only belongs in certain places invites spontaneity and excitement. When it comes to closeness centered on a woman's pleasure, it's vital to understand that sensitivity extends beyond one focal point. True enjoyment arises from attention to all areas, the delicate folds of her intimate anatomy, the surrounding soft skin of inner thighs, and the gentle touch that invites relaxation and arousal. It's important to communicate through words, sounds, and body language. Encouraging moans or whispers build your partner's confidence and guidance, telling you what works and what doesn't. When both partners stay present and attentive, they can engage in a beautiful dance of pleasure that often includes reaching the edge of climax repeatedly before ultimately delivering a profoundly satisfying experience. Sometimes this technique is referred to today as edging, where one builds excitement near the point of release and then backs off to intensify the eventual satisfaction. Men, too, can experience this phenomenon, and it requires care and patience to navigate these moments together. Communication remains paramount. If your partner says, "That's perfect, keep doing that," resist the impulse to try something new at that point. Consistency is what feels best. Verbal communication complements the physical, with prompts like softer, harder, or "Can you move this way?" helping to fine-tune the experience. Learning to tune into these cues strengthens the connection and makes each moment more meaningful. Ultimately, the joy comes from discovering what delights your partner specifically, the pressure, speed, location, and rhythm that make them feel treasured and loved. This journey requires ongoing exploration, titration of new techniques, and an open mind. It also involves respecting boundaries. Both partners may have activities they prefer to avoid, and this mutual respect cultivates trust and safety. By making communication the foundation of your intimate life, you create space for deeper enjoyment, connection, and mutual satisfaction that can grow and evolve beautifully over time. We embarked on our journey together, married and building a life filled with the joys and challenges that come with it. We had children, purchased homes, cared for pets, and pursued careers responsibilities that, while rewarding, often encroached on the privacy and intimacy that once seemed effortless. The daily hustle and bustle can drain the energy couples have for one another, making it harder to maintain the closeness we once enjoyed. Alongside these changes, our spiritual lives deepened as we joined a church and embraced Christianity. This new foundation introduced us to varied perspectives on what was considered right or wrong within intimate relationships. As we listened to teachings from friends, leaders, and mentors, we realized that not every opinion aligned with our experience or what truly worked for us as a couple. It became clear that blindly accepting external judgments could do more harm than good, especially when it came to something as personal as the way we connect physically and emotionally. I knew women who strongly disliked a certain form of affection, to the point where it created a significant rift in their relationship. In some cases, this discomfort led to a complete withdrawal from those intimate acts altogether, which understandably created strain between them and their spouses. On my husband's side, I heard from male friends who felt discouraged and defeated because it seemed like no matter what they did, it wasn't enough. They worried their efforts were inadequate, leaving the couples feeling distant and disconnected. These stories, sadly, are all too common and remind us how vital open communication and mutual respect are for keeping the bond strong. When two people choose to wed, they enter into a monogamous partnership, a union, where exclusivity is expected not only emotionally, but physically as well. This means each spouse becomes the sole recipient of the other's desire, affection, and intimacy. It is a significant commitment and one that carries great responsibility. When one partner refuses or neglects to meet the other's needs, it leaves voids that can foster loneliness and dissatisfaction. These gaps create fertile ground for temptation or emotional distancing, threatening the very foundation of the marriage. Recognizing this, it becomes clear that both partners must be willing to give not just what they want to share, but what the other truly needs. This is a dance of mutual cooperation, requiring continual effort, understanding, and generosity. If you've encountered any of our earlier writings, you may have heard us speak about our ongoing intimate revolution. This transformation came about through the courageous act of opening honest dialogue around desires, boundaries, and the realities of our relationship. It's not a process without challenges. It demands vulnerability and a willingness to admit imperfections as well as new appetites that may have remained hidden. Often, people hesitate to reveal everything about themselves during courtship because they fear rejection or judgment. They withhold preferences, suppressed curiosities, or even conflicting feelings because they want to present an idealized version of themselves. This withholding can persist long after the wedding, leading to years of unfulfilled longing and unspoken truths. This challenge is amplified in Christian marriages, where some topics are seen through a lens of morality that can stifle open conversation. Something that could bring great pleasure and deepen connection might instead be viewed as inappropriate or sinful. These added layers make honest exchanges even harder, yet they make them more necessary. By discovering ways to communicate respectfully and compassionately, couples can break down these invisible walls. Focusing specifically on affectionate expressions shared intimately between partners, it's worth noting that these moments do not have to be confined to a particular place or ritual. The notion that closeness should only happen in a bedroom or designated private space can limit spontaneity and joy. Imagine bringing these moments to unexpected settings, a secluded spot during a road trip, a private corner at a social gathering, or even in the quiet of a new home. Expanding where and when intimacy occurs can enrich the experience tremendously. For women, offering affection often centers on areas that bring the most pleasure, but it's important to remember that sensitivity isn't limited to one place. True delight often comes from a combination of touches, kisses, and gentle caresses over different parts of the body, the vulva, inner thighs, pelvis, and more. Paying close attention to the subtle reactions your partner shows can guide you in providing the right amount of pressure, the perfect rhythm, and the kind of touch that resonates most deeply. Communication plays a starring role in this dance. Listening to moans, sighs, and whispers can build confidence and show that you are attuned to what your partner enjoys. Verbal cues like softer, harder, or right there help fine-tune the experience and prevent confusion or frustration. Many couples find that repeated exploration and gentle encouragement can lead to multiple waves of pleasure during a single intimate session, reinforcing their bond and desire. Embracing this journey of learning and growing together, especially amid life's inevitable changes, is the key to a fulfilling and lasting connection. When partners commit to ongoing communication, exploration, and respect, they create a safe space where their love and intimacy can flourish, despite the demands and distractions of everyday life. If you followed any of our earlier conversations or writings, you may have come across mentions of our own personal journey toward deeper intimacy, a kind of revolution within our relationship brought about through open and honest communication. This transformation didn't happen overnight. It required courage, trust, and the willingness to share not only what excites us, but also what challenges and concerns we faced. At the heart of this process is honesty about what truly turns us on and what makes us feel connected and loved. Unfortunately, many couples hold back from revealing everything about their desires during courtship. There's often a fear that sharing too much might lead to judgment or rejection, so people keep parts of themselves hidden, hoping these desires might be safely explored later, sometimes years later, without causing harm. In Christian marriages, this tendency can be even more pronounced. The concern over what might be deemed unchristian or inappropriate can create walls around intimate topics, making open dialogue difficult. Yet, embracing honest communication is crucial for a fulfilling partnership, regardless of the background or beliefs involved. Today, we focus on an aspect of intimacy that is often discussed but still wrapped in mystery and hesitation: the affectionate acts couples share by mouth. These tender moments of closeness do not need to adhere to rigid rules or designated places. They can happen almost anywhere. Breaking free from the traditional idea that intimacy must always take place in a bedroom opens the door to spontaneity and excitement. Picture a quiet road trip where a brief private moment adds spark to the journey, or imagine sneaking away at a social event for a fleeting but meaningful connection. Expanding our idea of where affection can be expressed adds freshness and depth to the relationship. When it comes to expressing affection focused on a woman's pleasure, it's important to recognize that her sensitivity extends beyond a single focal point. While the most well-known area might be the small, super-sensitive part often brought up in discussions, true enjoyment arises from the careful attention to all parts of her intimate anatomy: the surrounding folds, the delicate skin of the inner thighs, and the tender areas of the pelvis. Soft, sensual kisses or gentle strokes over these areas can create waves of pleasure that contribute to a memorable and satisfying experience. Throughout these experiences, communication plays a vital role. Learning to listen to and interpret the subtle sounds and movements your partner makes, moans, sighs, or soft words, builds confidence and guides you toward what feels best for her. Verbal guidance, simple phrases like "softer," "just like that," or "a little harder," helps fine-tune the connection. It's essential to maintain this dialogue throughout, ensuring that both partners remain responsive and engaged. Persistence and patience often pay off. Sometimes a woman experiences waves of pleasure that build near climax only to recede before reaching the peak. This cycle may repeat several times and can become frustrating if not handled with care. The key here is edging the practice of bringing someone close to climax and then easing back to intensify the eventual release. While this technique is widely discussed today, it has long been a natural part of human intimacy. It's also important to remember that men can experience similar sensations of approaching climax and then pausing, requiring cooperation and understanding from both partners. One valuable lesson is to pay attention and stick with what your partner appreciates. If you hear, "That's perfect," keep doing that. Resist the temptation to get creative and change things up. Consistency in those moments provides the greatest pleasure. Nonverbal communication is just as important as verbal cues. Encouraging moans, sighs, and gentle movements show appreciation and guide your partner's confidence in their performance. Over time, these shared experiences can lead to multiple waves of climax within a single intimate session. Sometimes the feelings become so intense that one partner holds the other closely, their desire apparent in every motion and sound. Open communication invites couples to explore new combinations of touch, rhythm, and settings, always respecting each other's boundaries and comfort zones. For example, many women find that combining gentle touches with other sensory experiences enhances their pleasure. The use of fingers, when applied thoughtfully and attentively, can add a wonderful dimension to the experience. The right positioning, pressure, and movement make all the difference. Similarly, the possibility of exploring areas that might initially seem outside comfort zones, perhaps with patience, trust, and plenty of discussion, can enrich both partners' enjoyment. This might involve trying new techniques or exploring different parts of the body, always with mutual consent and understanding. The overarching message is clear. Sexual communication is not just about words, it's about creating a shared language of touch, sound, and presence. Together, couples can unlock the deepest layers of connection and pleasure. By maintaining openness, curiosity, and respect, They build a sexual and emotional partnership that thrives, even as time passes and life changes. The intimacy they cultivate becomes a source of joy and strength, fueling the broader relationship and enriching every dimension of their shared life. As we move through life, changes inevitably shape our bodies and experiences, especially when it comes to intimacy. For men, aging brings natural shifts that can influence physical responses, timing, and intensity. It's important for partners to understand that these changes are a normal part of life, not a reflection of personal inadequacy or waning desire. Open and compassionate communication between spouses becomes crucial during these transitions. Instead of assuming fault or distance, couples can explore new ways to nurture pleasure and closeness that honor where they are physically and emotionally. Every individual is unique, and what feels good on one day might differ on another. Listening carefully to your partner's cues about what they enjoy or dislike helps keep the connection alive and fulfilling. For example, some men may appreciate gentle touches like having their nipples caressed or lightly pinched, while other focus is placed elsewhere. Others may find pleasure in more adventurous kinds of stimulation, always within comfortable and consensual boundaries. One such practice that some couples find rewarding is prostate massage, an intimate touch that can heighten pleasure during moments of closeness. This requires openness, trust, and hygiene, but when approached carefully, it can add rich new dimensions to shared experiences. Likewise, affectionate acts that involve gentle exploration around sensitive areas can bring surprising joy and deepen the bond between partners. As we grow older, moments of pleasure may take longer to reach, but often become more intense and meaningful. For both partners, this means adjusting expectations and approaches. What once required high energy and endurance might be replaced by slower, more deliberate acts of tenderness and connection. For the partner providing affection, especially when oral techniques are involved, physical fatigue can become a factor. It's helpful to find ways to balance stimulation methods to avoid strain. Combining oral affection with manual touches or using fingers cleverly can offer alternating sensations that maintain excitement without exhausting either partner. For instance, gently wrapping fingers around the shaft while moving the mouth rhythmically creates varied sensations that heighten arousal. The underside of the penis, particularly the frenulum, the sensitive band of tissue beneath the types, a spot that often responds strongly to light, delicate stroking, or licking. Paying attention to such areas can elevate the experience considerably. Incorporating soft suction while moving the hand along the shaft in steady, coordinated motions can lead to powerful climaxes. Additionally, including gentle fondling of the testicular area without squeezing but rather milking or massaging the skin thoughtfully can increase pleasure. Visual connection during these acts also matters. Making eye contact as affection is given intensifies emotional intimacy and can add to the partner's enjoyment. Over the years, we have learned the value of these varied techniques and mutual guidance. Every couple will find what works best for them through trial, error, and patient communication. It's important to remember that pleasure is not a rigid formula, but a living conversation between bodies and hearts. Sometimes limitations due to health or emotional challenges slow intimacy, but the love and commitment remain strong. This foundation allows couples to adapt and continue enjoying closeness in different ways. Our sexual relationship today is more satisfying than it ever was. We've faced obstacles, yet our love and understanding have deepened. Mutual respect and willingness to communicate openly empower us to explore and enjoy each other fully. Sharing our experiences in the hope that other couples might feel encouraged to talk honestly about their desires, boundaries, and needs is our way of giving back. True intimacy thrives on this foundation of trust and openness. As life progresses, the joy of connection grows richer and more fulfilling, a testament to the power of love nurtured through patience, communication, and a willingness to embrace change.